What's good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Tony, aka the Senator of Chaos and Controversy, and I'm here with another subject to discuss. People uh, in either open debates or private discussions is like, okay, Tony, in spite of the climate of where America is at with the racial divide, because that's basically what the truth of the matter is. When you want to look at the definition of what America is, it's a racial divide. Has been for quite some time. Um, for a moment, we had a moment of peace where it seemed like differences were reconciled and the humanity started to come into play. And then just when we got into a point where it appeared as if we were able to get along to a certain degree, that we were tossed back into turmoil and chaos, and now we're in a state of division again. Um, but how do I see America? Well, America isn't just about the racial divide, the racial division, or racism. You know, um, because that's like looking at America through like one lens. There's other areas to be attentive towards, and observe and acknowledge and recognize. And I guess that's where the problem actually lies. We don't acknowledge enough. You know, um, we're so focused on the negative. We fan the flames of negativity. Um, we are defined by negativity. We embrace negativity. We encourage negativity. And it's like, damn, what the fuck? Um, I am a person who, I've shared this many times over. I'm a person who is biracial. You know, the history of my existence isn't kosher, you know. Um, but there's other things to recognize. I've pointed out that there needs to be balance to the equation of people, Americans here in this country. Yes, there is an ugly history in this damn country. Yes, it has been made a point to discard and I wouldn't necessarily say remove, but hide the ugliness. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't address the issues. It doesn't correct issues that were left uncorrected. You know, but it's like the way things are in the present is that whoever the puppeteers are, it's like they want us to go about life being fucking angry, and they'll throw shit out there that has valid points, has validation and stuff. But with all that being said, it's like we disregard individuals. We're looking at people as a whole, blaming people for the actions of a few or a group, when I say group, like in cells, you know what I'm saying? That are affiliated with a particular color or race and stuff like that. But we're not looking at, and we're blaming the whole community for isolated, you know antics of people, or how should I say, the opinions and the negative perspective coming from people, that is thrown on to others, you know, and how we define others, you know, just based on negative perception. And it's not to say that we are not without guilt. None of us are not without guilt. Asians, Hispanics, whites, blacks, we all do it to each other. Who suffers the most from the negative stereotypes? That's to be debated. That's a matter of opinion. You know, the automatic go-to response would be, hey, black people catch more hell than anybody else in this country from everybody. And it would be justified that everybody wants so bad to have the approval of white people that if you're Hispanic and you're the lighter version of Hispanics, if you're Asian or if you anybody else and stuff, you don't want to be put into the classification of African Americans to be treated like African Americans, so you want the approval of white people. So you'll do what you can, even if that means taking on the prejudices, the stereotypes, and the hatreds towards black people, to treat them as such, just so you don't get the how should I say, the the negative branding of being demonized as a group in the eyes of white folks. But then again, us like there are white folks that are champions for people who are at a disadvantage, who are, you know, subjected to unfairness, and they are against the boogeyman propaganda. You know, they don't believe in exploiting the negativity of other groups and stuff, but instead embracing their culture, seeing them as humans, as individuals, as Americans, as patriots, you know, and they're not easily swayed into, you know, putting falsehood stereotypes on people, you know, but being that, you know, due to their counterparts, they aren't given a chance to prove themselves worthy. Instead, they're lumped in with the negativity of their peers, which is unfair, you know. But it isn't just that to observe. It's like we share common issues as just people. You know, we got people who deal with sicknesses, poverty, you know, family dysfunction and stuff like that. You know, and this isn't just applied to one particular race. This is for everybody to be subjected to. You know, um, stuff that happens to our kids and stuff. It's stuff that we all share. The pain that you think is just one group dealing with, no. Other groups share the same common shit, but we don't look at what where we stand on common ground. We're too busy looking at each other on opposite sides of the spectrum. But there are a lot of things that we share that are in common. And unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with a lot of pain. You know, when I speak of segregation and how that was successful, people laugh at me. And I said, you know what? When it comes to the white privilege and giving value to a skin color, you think this division that's happening now is something new? It's just a recycled narrative. Why you think segregation was able to happen and why it was successful at the time that it was? But people don't think about that because they don't want you to remember your history. This is the reason why they're fighting against the critical race theory. Because if they was to really teach you about the dynamics of segregation and how that came about and why it took place, you know, you'll sit there and be like, you know, what the fuck? Because not only was it, you know, that you had the elites, and when I talk about the elites, those are the ones that I guess you could say now has taken on the shroud or the identity as being labeled the government. But those that are on top that, you know, look down on us peasants, I would say, and say we can't have a united body of people in a country that get along. No, because that goes against our narrative. We can't allow that. We refuse to allow that. Because if that happens, then they might knock us out of our position of power. And we are comfortable with our position of power. So we don't want an uprising against an entity that controls the masses. So we got to keep y'all divided. So how do you think segregation came about? Well, there was talk about how, they had to where, they finger pointed the lack of jobs in the white communities due to the free slaves and stuff, and how that the blacks were taking over the jobs of the white people. The recycled narrative of what they tried to say about the Mexicans coming here to America, taking over the jobs and stuff. The tone and the ring of familiarity is just, for people who don't pay attention to detail, either you sleep or you're just dumb or you just don't give a fuck. But the truth of the matter is, that's the truth of the matter. So, and then when you have poor white people, because yes, there's poor white people, but don't get it twisted. Rich white people or the elites never gave a fuck about the poor white people. They didn't even care. They were the niggers of society. Truth be told. But when you get one group who identifies with another group because they're on common ground with their position of class, being that they were poor, so they shared something in common. How do you give value to somebody that's undervalued? Exclude the other group. So how do you think segregation came about? When they talked about whites only. So yeah, you were still poor white trash. You were still the gutter of the white society, but the fact that you were white gave you value. As long as you couldn't identify or didn't identify with black folks, you know what I'm saying? Then you were better. You were better than. You weren't better than those that were above you, who were white, but you were better than those that were of a different race, of a different color, and that's all that mattered. But you still wasn't shit though. Let that be understood. You still wasn't shit in the eyes of the elites. But you were able to go into white restaurants, white establishments, white schools, white libraries, white restrooms, sit in the front of the bus, and stuff like that. Whereas black people were held back and kept back. And that was acceptable. But people don't understand the tactics and how the game is rigged and how the game is played. But that's what it is though. It's just like they don't want nobody sharing any common interests. But regardless if we accept it or like it or not, we're all in the same boat together. We just have to figure out how to stop entertaining nonsense and bullshit. See shit for what it is. You know what I'm saying? Come together. Because us being divided gets us nowhere. You know what I'm saying? We have unnecessary animosity towards each other. And for what reason? We can't even validate it. And people run around frustrated for what reason? And we're always looking for someone to blame other than those who are responsible. And those who are actually responsible, they get to sit wherever the fuck they're sitting and laugh at us. And looking at how emotionally stupid we are. And do you think they give a fuck? No, they don't. Because they orchestrate this madness. And we fall right into the same fucking trap every single fucking time. Lessons has yet to be learned. Why do you think they don't want to teach history? Because they say, oh shit, if they pick up on this recycled pattern, then they might become aware of our antics, and then we can't use the same tactics against them over and over because it's a failed attempt. But how can it be a failed attempt when what they do has been successful and been working for all this time? Recycled over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But people don't fucking pay attention. Instead, they're too busy engulfed and caught up in their own sense of madness that they're fucking blindsided. So how do I feel about America today in the midst of all this racial shit? We need to come to a point where we see each other as Americans instead of hyphen Americans. But we haven't gotten to that because we have some unreconciled differences that have yet to be addressed or won't be allowed that won't allow to be addressed because of the narrative that needs to be controlled. What the Constitution stands for and who it is basically applied to and who is exempt from it. Oh, you have the right to this to the extent of, oh, we are allowed to say this, we are allowed to express this, but if you decide to exercise those same rights, shh, we're gonna silence you. Everyone has a right to their voice. Everyone has a right to speak on what it is that they need to speak to, whether you agree with them or not. The point of discussion is to see where each side is coming from and have an understanding of the standpoint of where that other debatable person in an argument in their point of view and why it is what it is. But we haven't come to that point yet because we're still fighting each other over fucking trivial nonsense. And yes, I can address certain situations and have my opinion about it, but that doesn't mean that I'm just anchored into that point of view. Because no argument is that fucking simple, that cut and dry. Because there's many perspectives that you can see a debate or an argument from, aside from your own. Because like I said, people are quick to be dismissive of the validation of people's experiences as if to discount it, as if it never happened. But you can't discount people's experience if they've lived it, endured it, suffered from it, been affected by it. And to those who haven't had to be subjected to some of the whatever, you are fortunate. Be thankful that you're fortunate. But don't be so arrogant to fucking be dismissive of other people's experiences just because you have the liberty and the luxury of not to have had to experience what other people had to go through. That's like me saying, you know what? So what if a person had cancer or some shit, or had AIDS, or had whatever fucking disease and shit? That ain't my fucking problem. I never had cancer. I've never had AIDS. I've never. So why the fuck should I care about that person? What the fuck they going through? That's being fucking heartless than a motherfucker. And to say just because you never went through and shit doesn't mean that that person isn't going through it, or hasn't been subjected to it, or the family hasn't been, faced with having to deal with the loss of a loved one, or had to help them fight a battle that has a percentage that 9 times out of 10 they can't recover from. But that's where we at. That's where our mentality lies here in this country right now. We're so fucking selfish and think only of ourselves that we can't stand to see beyond our own selfishness. And it's fucking pretty sad. But anyway, I've done enough ranting. It's hot as shit out here. I'm gonna take my ass back inside the air condition. Watch this new movie with Mark Wahlberg called Infinite with Dylan O'Brien and a couple other people and shit. But until next time, until next video, you already know how it goes.